Gail, I want to make this video for your keepsake. There may be some who were familiar with my brother, Lloyd Falls. And we lived in Fort Worth. We were members of the First Baptist Church of Fort Worth, Texas. After the death of J. Frank Norris, my brother began to, after he had made an acquaintance with a number of students at the Bible Baptist Seminary who drifted throughout the country and established independent Baptist churches, my brother was invited by several of these young men with whom he had become acquainted with, invited him to come and work on their behalf and as a Sunday school promoter. And mainly what my brother Lloyd engaged in, he and his wife Nell would knock doors, survey the city, in most cases smaller type towns, and from that cadre of people he would help these pastors build fairly sizable churches. Now I must add that he got his start as a printer in Longview, Texas. He had the unique experience of being foreman in 1935 of publishing the largest newspaper at that time that had ever been published in Longview, Texas. From there he came on into Fort Worth and joined our family. But then at the demise of J. Frank Norris, as I've stated, he drifted into the northern part of the country, and I wished I could remember the names of the many young pastors from whom he had received invitations. And I can only remember a few names. I can remember the name Don Lloyd. And I say this for the purpose of, in case someone sees this video, then names that I may recollect you will be familiar with. But in the Detroit area there were several churches, and as I mentioned, one of the prominent names was the name of Don Lloyd. My brother also worked with B.H. Hillard, and he was the predecessor of Dr. John Rylands in the church there in Cincinnati, Oklahoma, or Ohio. My brother worked with B.H. Hillard for about 6 or 8 months. He was acquainted with Merle Winters, who established a church in Pennsylvania. And of course this has all been years and years ago, some 60, maybe 70 years ago. From there, my brother gravitated down into the eastern coastline of the United States, namely around the state of Virginia. And I can remember his association with Dr. Bob Barber in Danville, Virginia. You know, Virginia has been made famous by the well-known Jerry Falwell. And of course all of those fellows, most of them came along a little bit after some of the more pioneers of the independent Baptist movement. My brother worked with Bob Barber, and I think he has 2 sons, both of them still living, with whom I was acquainted. Raymond, Dr. Raymond Barber, and his brother, Bob Barber, Jr., both of whom were real fine men that I can remember, and I cherish their memories. From there, my brother spent time in South Carolina, North Carolina. I wish, as I said again, that I could remember the names of those with whom he was associated with, but he related to me many of his experiences. If I had time, I could even elaborate even further. But to close this video, Gail, my brother died in Gainesville, Georgia. From there, he had made the acquaintance of 2 wonderful men, Brother Willard Thomas and Brother Edgar Thomas. And those of you who are from Gainesville, Georgia, will be familiar with those 2 names. My brother was a friend to both of these fine pastors, and with which also I became acquainted with. And as I stated, my brother was buried, he and his wife, Nell, a wonderful woman, that stood by his side as they scoured the country, knocking on doors and being a friend and an aid to the pastors in their struggling years. So I pass this on for keepsake, and pray for me as I try to carry on my website, the J. Frank Norris Historical Society. Good night, and God bless.